All right, greetings everybody. Please settle down. My name is Altamash Saeed and I'll be your moderator for today. The topic we're discussing today is a very important one, especially for those working as lawyers or working in the nonprofit sector, especially working on policy with government and other avenues. Something that is a very important tool in advancing animal rights under different facets. So today we actually have very amazing esteemed speakers. Their introductions are in depth available on the Hoover app. And since we're very limited on time, I want to give them more time to speak. So I'm just going to vanish away. And to begin, I will introduce our two speakers who work with the Veggie Project Japan. Our first speaker is Jeronimo, alongside Haruko, who will be presenting for 20 minutes, followed by Dr. Udit Sharma, who will talk about criminal justice reform policies in India. Thank you.
Okay. So hello everyone, thank you for coming today to our talk. My name is Jeronimo. I'm from Veggie Project Japan. We are a non-profit trying to increase the number of vegan and plant-based options in Japan. Today I will be talking together with Haruko, who is the founder of our organization. She has been working for 10 years with this purpose. And I have been a volunteer of this organization since it started as a nonprofit. Last year I joined as a full-time member. I wish I can explain very well what our work looks like. And we will be doing this talk separated in two parts. In the first part, I will talk a little bit about who we are and what kind of work we are doing. And then I will move on to an overview of the case study for today's talk, which is our work with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. And following that, Haruko will talk about, will provide her insight about how these collaborations with the government took place and give some ideas that might work for you trying to do similar things within your organizations. So to give some background, first, I would like to quote this data. There is something in the US that is 48%, or at least it was in 2021, and that it's less than 1% in Japan. Do you know what this is? So this is the number, the percentage of restaurants that offer at least one vegan option in their menu. So in Japan, you would need to go to around 100 stores to finally find one single store that has a vegan menu readily available. So I think this is a similar situation to different countries in Asia, but in Japan we have a situation where we have very few vegan options because there is lack of interest in vegan and plant-based options. But at the same time, this lack of options is also one of the causes for which people find it hard to become interested in vegan lifestyles. So we have some kind of vicious circle situation here. In 2013, Veggie Project Japan, Veggie Project started as a project to introduce vegan menus at the University of Kyoto. Haruko, who is going to talk after me, did this. Back then, nobody, or almost nobody, knew the word vegan or what it meant. And even if they knew about it, no one was claiming, we want a vegan menu in our campus. But she believed that if these options were available, people would become interested in them. So she did her work together with other students to introduce vegan options. And after the menu was introduced, she realized that the media was coming, newspapers were coming, people were choosing the vegan menu even if they hadn't known about it before, and some people who were actually at the beginning very critical of the project were now becoming allies. So we realized one thing, and is that we can start maybe from either of the two sides of the vicious circle, but we have to start somewhere. And creating vegan and plant-based options is one of the ways that we have to actually create interest in these options. When the options are there, some people will find them yummy, some people will find it interesting, and these will start to create a positive circle where people are more interested in these options, and these options become more and more readily available. So for this reason, at Veggie Project, we are working mostly in the creation of vegan options as a way to both reduce the harm we make to animals and the planet, and also as a way to create more interest around vegan lifestyles. I met Haruko in 2015. At that time, I became very inspired. I felt like I want to do the same thing in my university, so that is what I did. In 2016, since her enthusiasm was going around other places outside of Kyoto University, we decided to make Veggie Project Japan into a non-profit organization that would work not only with universities, but also with restaurants, hotels, food manufacturers, and today's topic, with national and local governments. So I will just give a simple overview of what we do so that you can understand where we're coming from. One of the activities that we have continued to do throughout all the time since we started as a student project, we continue to support students and the introduction of vegan menus at universities. We sometimes approach the university cafeteria staff directly, and other times we support students groups who are trying to do animal advocacy, plant-based advocacy at their campuses, or also introducing vegan options at their universities. We also work together with restaurants and hotels and other food caterers for the introduction of vegan menus. We do so in different ways, such as one-on-one consultations, seminars, and also we help them after the menus are out in the world, we help them promote their menus as well. We do this, of course, on social media, but also with a map that we create. It's called Veggie Map. If you ever go to Tokyo, you can find this map in different tourist information centers that are all around the city, sometimes inside train stations, and also in some hotels and restaurants. So we try to get restaurants and hotels to have more vegan options, and then to get those options known by everyone. One of the main works of Veggie Project at this moment is our work with food manufacturers and companies who are dealing with food products. We do this, we offer a wide variety of support to these companies. We start with consultations for the development of products. If some company wants to make a vegan product, we try to help them as much as we can so that they can do it without facing so many troubles. And we also do vegan labeling. We have a label that is currently the most widely used vegan label in Japan. With the work that we do with manufacturers, the manufacturers have started to become more and more interested in plant-based and vegan products. Nowadays, it's much easier than 10 years ago or when we started to find vegan products in supermarkets, convenience stores, and so on. And we also help these manufacturers promote their products, and also we try to engage with as many businesses as possible and business-to-business events. We organize business seminars at these kind of events, like the ones in the picture. And we also coordinate whole vegan areas. So companies come to these food trade shows to learn about the latest food trends, and they have this whole vegan area to become interested in this topic. And also retailers might find what vegan products are outside, are around in Japan, and they might try to get them into the supermarket. So we try to foster that interest around the market as much as we can. But today's topic is going to be about our work with national and local governments, so I will try to move on to that. In order to talk about this, I won't talk about all the things that we do with governments. I will try to focus on our work with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, which I will introduce next. So background, in 2019, even before that, sorry, for some years, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government has been conducting a program that helps restaurants, hotels, and other retailers to become better at receiving foreign tourists. This is mainly done for the point of view of increasing tourism in the city of Tokyo. And there was this program that initially was mostly focused at creating halal options for Muslim visitors that we have in 2019 managed to become advisors for. Within this program, we are currently doing vegetarian and vegan catering support for restaurants and retailers and hotels as well. So we are doing a wide variety of activities in order to promote vegan and plant-based menus. such as one-on-one consultations. Any restaurant or any hotel can contact the government for help introducing vegan menus. And we go there and try to give the best advice that we can. It is not always one-on-one consultations. We also do in-house trainings and events like the one on the right. On the left, there is a picture of the result of one of our consultations. We helped a very large hotel in Tokyo, to develop a 15-dish buffet. On the right is a picture of a tasting event that we did for a group company that has some hotels, including the Tokyo Marriott Hotel. We also have helped the government organize networking events that help connect food caterers with manufacturers who are producing vegan and plant-based ingredients as a way to make it easier for restaurants to have more vegan options available. We have also offered for seminars for food professionals, as well as workshops and training sessions. We also supervise the creation of materials such as a dining guide introducing vegan and vegetarian-friendly stores in the city, and a recipe booklet, for example, for food professionals that provides many royalty-free recipes for restaurants that they can use like that, as well as food techniques in order to make vegan dishes delicious. So this is a lot of things that the government is doing together with us. So in the next part, I would like to call Haruko in order to explain how did the government suddenly start doing so many things to promote vegan and plant-based options in the city, because this was unprecedented until then. So yes, I welcome Haruko, who will give her insight about this.
Hi, thank you for being here to join our presentation. As Jeronimo introduced me, I started my career of creating vegan options within my university. I learned that if we create vegan options, then some people will become interested and try them. Or even those people who don't care about vegan food, if it looks yummy and the price is reasonable, they sometimes will choose it. After I graduated, we had an opportunity to interview Paul McCartney. On that occasion, I was very impressed with how professional the team was. Of course, not only Paul McCartney, but also all the team, like the cameraman, the light checker, and the sound checker. I saw their work and okay. I was too short. Maybe I'm sorry. So I saw their work and I felt I really wanted to be a professional just like them on what I really wanted to do. So I decided to quit my job and to make Veggie Project into official organization. Since I made Veggie Project my full-time work, I did everything what I really thought of and took every chance I could, and I worked seriously on them. After a lot of work, our organization currently working with over 300 companies and governments. However, on the early stages, these chances would be very spaced out and hard to catch. One of the early works that we did was introducing the vegan takoyaki, which is octopus dumpling. I can't scroll anyway. I'm sorry, my script is not appearing. Go ahead. Anyway, so this was very small project and a very tiny little cutie takoyaki restaurant, but I really wanted to support them to introduce vegan version of takoyaki there. Then at that time, we didn't have any funding, so I remember I asked the store nearby to rent us the free space to cook and try tasting. And then I called all my vegan friends and acquaintances I found, and then invite them to organize a cooking event, and then see what works for them to show the vegan good takoyaki recipe. And it works, and then they really liked the recipe, and then they started the vegan version of this. So this kind of small things happening, and starting with works with like this, we continue to support restaurants one at a time. While doing so, we made many connections with people. And also these connections led to new opportunities and connections. We start building a network of trust as wide and as strong as possible, always doing our best to make the trust stronger and lasting. One of these connections eventually brought us to the opportunity to be a speaker in a seminar organized by Tokyo government in 2019. This seminar was organized in a small room and joined by few people, as you can see. And but this became our first point of contact of Tokyo government. Since then, we began receiving collaboration opportunities from Tokyo government. With each one, we aimed to exceed their expectations. Over time, these opportunities became more frequent and larger. As you can see, it was this small room, and it became this big room with a lot of people. And we performed the vegan-related project within Tokyo government program with very much care, and they became successful. Then the Tokyo government started to switch their agenda so as to include vegan catering as our main topic. Last year, we supervised a vegan-friendly recipe book for food professionals, and this year we are making this recipe book 3 times bigger. Now that the Tokyo government became proactive in the support of vegan caterings, other cities and our other prefectures are starting to follow. For example, we have worked with the local government of Tokyo, such as Taito and Chiyoda cities, for their seminars or the creation of information materials. This year, we are working with other cities outside of Tokyo. For example, Fukuoka City has created their own version of Tokyo program and has reached to us for help making the city more vegan friendly. We are also promoting vegan meals together with Kameoka City in Kyoto. And also, they are about to hold their first vegan seminars for local businesses. We also sometimes work with public agencies of the national government. For example, we supervised a one-year project to create a vegan-friendly model city together with the Ministry of Tourism. We are also called to join policy-making discussions concerning vegetarian, vegan catering at the parliament. And this year, we are invited to supervise a guidebook issued by national government for food professional to welcome vegan, vegetarian, and Muslim tourists. So little by little, we have developed the connections and works with more and more cities. So here is the moral of the story. When people see our work, some people tend to think that we are a large organization, but actually we are not. I was the only one full-time worker until 3 years ago. Now we are 5, but survive. And our partners working in each organization or company or government are doing really nice work. And in their own position, we motivate them and support them to do this very important and meaningful work together. When they understand it, they really work well and change starts to happen. So commitment builds trust, and trust creates opportunities. It is not that we had a special plan to reach to government or expand their vegan agendas. The secret was simply the result of building trust throughout everyday's hard work. Then one thing naturally led to another. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And I hope our message and our case help your activities. And if you have Instagram, please follow us and use your camera to scan this and keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Very good morning, everyone. So as introduced by Altumash, I am a professor of law. And coming from the legal background, my presentation and my discussion would be around law, but I've shaped it in a manner that even non-lawyers who are attending this will become somehow relevant to you also. So I'm trying to explore the status of animals as victims of crime. And how did this come? Because I was a criminal law student, and after studying animal law, I tried to draw some overlaps that is there any interdisciplinary thought perspective where these two things can overline. And I found that there are many, many areas where even criminal law is so silent about animals as subjects, and especially victimology, criminology are two areas where the scholars have blamed them to be guilty of thoroughgoing speciesism. And I'm sure you all are aware of this term speciesism or speciesist, which is again a radical exclusion of a class in which we put animals and humans aside, and animals by necessary implications become excluded and become victims. So the topic will be touching around disciplines of criminology, victimology, criminal justice, but more importantly, sociology. Reason being, the Animal Welfare Project, the Animal Rights Project, we also treat it as a social justice project. If we take it from the perspective of a welfare state, if we take it from the perspective of from victimology being a branch of sociology, which tries to extend benefits and recognize harms and pain and suffering. So by that necessary implication, sociology becomes the most important discipline, and therefore it is relevant to even non-lawyers. Okay, I missed one thing I wanted to mention, a very brief mention. It's a very sad news came this morning from India. Mr. Ratan Tata, a very important, significant person in India, a businessman, a philanthropist, and most importantly, a very important animal activist, sort of an inspiration, passed away this morning. May his soul rest in peace. I just wanted to make a mention of this and then maybe start. Right, so if we look at the paradigm of the criminal justice system, it works like that. You identify there's some perpetrator, there's some person inflicting harm or doing wrong, there's some person who is victimized because of it, and then there's state. In the modern system, the state steps into the shoes of the victim and tries to help. So if, let's say, you are harmed, you don't have to personally take a vengeance or take a response to it. The state or the nation will come in support of you and will represent you in the criminal justice model. Interestingly, in this model, what happened was the victim perspective was getting missed. And slowly and gradually, critical studies in criminology gave rise to a new discipline, which is called victimology, where they said that irrespective of the state stepping in as the caretaker or the guardian of the victim voice needs to be heard separately. But after a lot of attempts of drawing the figure of the ideal victim, still we couldn't make that figure ecocentric. We are really very, very anthropocentric when it comes to creating a figure of a victim. So for us, human victims are victims. Animals have not really got a chance to fit in that zone of a victim till now. That's the story of criminology. That's the story of victimology. There have happened critical studies in criminology like green criminology and other aspects. But still, animal abuse, animal cruelty do not fit in as mainstream branches of these studies. And therefore, they remain excluded. So, for example, let me give you an example coming from the core penal law of India. I mean, that just got repealed in July, and we have a new code now. So there's this provision, I'm just quoting one of them, which was in the erstwhile law, section 428 of Indian Penal Code. I'm just giving you an example that, that as per that particular section or provision of the law, to kill or maim an animal was an offense. But it was not ever made with a perspective of welfare to animals or to acknowledge the victimhood of animals. So for example, I am the owner of the animal, you happen to kill my animal or injure my animal or break his limb or break his body or in some manner injure or inflict harm on him, then I am the person whom you are supposed to compensate, just like you have broken my property or did something wrong to my property. So the common law impact of animals as property has become a big obstacle in a lot of things that criminal law has not been able to do for animals. Also, okay, I'll bring this up later. So in that particular provision, though they acknowledge the emotions like maiming, killing, so when you use the word maim, you recognize that you're not talking about an object. For example, I happen to throw this. We would not use the word maim for this, or for this microphone, we would not use the word maim for this, because we identify a certain emotion with the word maiming. However, back then in 1860, when Indian Penal Code was drafted, they used the word maiming, which means they did acknowledge sentience impliedly, but still no victimhood. So it's like if the animal is hit or injured or the pain is inflicted, that's not a problem. The problem is that you need to compensate. And there was valuation of 10 rupees, 50 rupees as per the value of the animal. So it depended on the utility. You have inflicted harm to the property of an individual, not to a person of an animal. That was the perspective, and we have not gone beyond that. Thanks. So we are trying to trace that lost victimhood somewhere. We are trying to find out where we can locate that lost victimhood. So that's why I'm trying to look at it from a policymaker's perspective, from a student's perspective also. So like I mentioned, the impact of common law, that property status of animal, that has become a huge impediment in this. And obviously there have happened a lot of cases where arguments have come from the state that, how can a property be a victim? If animals are property, how can they be victimized? And how can then they can become, subjects of victimology, or even any kind of victim justice can be afforded to them. So these kind of obstacles have come, and I've already mentioned about the instance of the Indian Penal Code here. Now there are certain questions that we need to address, and I'll try to be as brief as possible because I have very less time here. So could animals be granted status as victims of crime and significant subjects of criminology and victimology? I'll initially like to know your opinion. How many of you think that animals should be treated as victims of crime? Fair enough. How many of you think they should not be treated as victims of crime in case of animal abuse, animal cruelty? None. So we have pretty much the clarity on this subject, what popular opinion says. However, despite that, the new changes have not been able to inculcate all these perspectives. They have still remained that way. I went back and checked the recent code that's applicable in India. And this is not just that is applicable in India. This is the state of affairs almost everywhere. Few nations do not have very basic laws for animals. Others who do have welfare laws for animals have not gone to an extent to acknowledge them as victims of crime. So there are a lot of challenges on the way. Now, what stops? Because jurisprudence has been little dicey to recognize animals as legal persons or subjects of rights. Therefore, these kind of challenges has come also as an obstacle in recognizing them as victims of crime. Now, should legal personhood be a standard, a qualifier for anybody to be acknowledged as victim of crime? That is a real question that we must ask, and not just lawyers, all of us can ask this. And there have been some developments in law only which have reflected that legal personhood should not be a barrier. Because apart from the core penal laws, there are a lot of welfare statutes in different jurisdictions that are meant for animals for preventing cruelty or for anti-abuse. For example, in India, we have the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. Now, that works on two implied principles. First, implied sentience, though there's no explicit acknowledgement of sentience even there, but there's implied sentience. Also, there's an implied thing that, when a law is made, a substantive provision is made to prevent cruelty or to obstruct infliction of pain and suffering on a subject, then it's an implied thing that the law is made for their welfare. And therefore, their victimhood is already acknowledged, impliedly. So, a similar kind of thing happened in Oregon, where the Supreme Court of Oregon had faced a similar kind of matter, where, in this matter, the argument made by the state was, in the case of neglect, the state made an argument that, animals are not victims of crime, and therefore, because they are property, they are objects, they are not victims of crime, and therefore no provisions that apply for victim aid or victim restitution should apply to them. However, the court went into a little jurisprudence, a little sociology, and came to an opinion that, we have a anti-neglect, anti-cruelty statute that has a very implied understanding that they must be treated as victims of crime. They can't be left behind, and that somehow became a very, very progressive development. And this is how the policymakers, the lawyers, and the judges must interpret law. This has become one of the benchmark judicial developments. And therefore, the court said legal personhood should not be a barrier. If a substantive law recognizes somebody as potential victim, or somebody who can be abused, who can be victimized, who can be harmed, who can be maimed, tortured, then that person has implied victimhood coming from law. And therefore, they extended the victim rights. And the last question that perhaps was not put anywhere in the legal discussion, but we must put it, that why do we need this kind of a qualifier when we say victimology is an extension of sociology? And in victimology, we have recognized so many people as victims. We have been extending the domain of the ideal victim day by day. Right. And therefore, the last question that comes to us is, shouldn't sentience just be enough to acknowledge somebody as victims of crime? And therefore, through critical criminal law literature, through victimology, I think they must welcome animals as victims with open arms. Thank you very much. Have a possible.
Thank you so much. Now we'll have a Q&A, and I will request the speakers to come up on stage. And if somebody could help me with the chairs. There are quite a few questions in the Whova app, and you can add more if you would like. Thank you so much for that. So thank you firstly for such a wonderful presentation, talking about veganizing Japan at such a young age and still keeping it going and working with the government, because that is something that's really hard for many of us to do. So thank you for that firstly, and to you as well for criminal justice reforms, because as a fellow lawyer, that was music to my ears. But of course, we will not go there. So I'll start with the questions that they have asked. So the first question is actually for everybody. It's a general one. What's the best practice in advocacy for animal welfare from your country's experience? Why don't we start from here, then go there?
Okay, so in my country, there's a very strong constitutional framework that pushes the model of a welfare state. So there's this doctrine of parens patria, which kind of talks about, that the state should stand for anyone who can't stand for themselves. So this kind of extensions have been made to further benefits to many, many stakeholders, whether it's from marginalized communities or labor community or anybody. And I make the same statement and make the same argument for animal law scholarship also, or animal advocacy also. So perhaps the strong foundation of a welfare state is something that I would like to push from India, and I would like to compliment the makers of the Constitution of India who've, created such a strong model of a welfare state.
Thank you. Over to you, Jeronimo.
In our case, we're not doing so much direct work with animal welfare itself. We're mostly a vegan and plant-based lifestyle advocacy organization. So I can talk about the way in which we do animal welfare. I really think that making a more plant-based friendly society is an absolutely necessary basis for making animal welfare more possible, because we cannot grow so many chickens, so many cows, so many pigs, while maintaining welfare standards. I think reducing our consumption is a real pressing issue in order to improve welfare as well. That is the way in which we try to contribute to animal welfare. I totally understand the necessity of doing both vegan advocacy as well as animal welfare advocacy, as so many other organizations are doing. Our way is on the vegan advocacy part of it.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. And I think we can combine the two as well in some ways, because there are many nations, including I'm from Pakistan, and we don't have either. Yes. So you will need both of them. But then I have a question specially for you, Jeronimo. Okay. So it says that the Veggie Project has ever done some kind of MOU or agreement with government, which I think you have. And if yes, which is the main part, how do you manage to convince them for signing the agreements?
MOU agreement, you mean for?
Some kind of a formal relationship with the government on doing the vegan project you do.
In our case, it's not that we are making direct agreements with the governments. We are being contracted as advisors of their programs. So it's not that we are making the governments do commitments to make the city more vegan friendly, but we're actually being part of the program that was originally made only for making halal options. And we have grown on that, but it's not like it was officially made like a vegan project. We just made it happen little by little. So I think there are two ways in which you can engage the government. One it would be like actually press the government to pass a law, or press the government to introduce a new program. And the other one is to enter where you can enter, like we did enter this program for welcoming foreign visitors, and then trying to grow on that to informally make the government little by little more supportive of either its animal welfare or vegan, the increased options of vegan options within the city. We have been on the later part of it, so it's not that we have got the government to commit to it. We just got them to work on it little by little when we realized they were being super supportive of it.
Okay.
Can I add?
Yes, please.
I think there are many ways to convince and introduce vegan options. Like, for example, we use tourist information, and also like environment things, and also food shortage problems. And there are many doors, and we can access, and there are many people who can understand not everything but part. Then we can make good relationships with them. Then they can think new project, or they can develop their own project. And then we how do you say, like channel to vegan ways. So this is our way.
Perfect, thank you. So my next question is for you, Udit. So this is actually more about the right to sue. So there's a question from the audience that in a guardian or a children relationship, children often do get the right to sue if they're affected. But why do you think animals, generally are not victims, which you understand, but how do we bring in the right to sue within the conversation for animals, if we can, or if we cannot?
Okay, fair enough. Look, when we talk about victim justice, the 4 prominent rights that have been recognized for victims are, I think, the first one is access to justice and fair treatment. So on that front, though we have an anti-abuse or anti-cruelty legislation, so animals do get a representation. It's wrong to say they do not ever get a representation, but they are not ever recognized as actual victims of crime. They do get a representation on paper. For example, a case may be registered, and but when we talk about animals as victims of crime, we are making a larger conversation about their interest, about their welfare, and we are trying to create a case or pathway to a restorative justice system. So as of now, we can say that there's right to sue mechanically, but not really. And therefore, one of the claims that are made by people who claim that they could be, animal rights can be a reality in the world, they say that there are a lot of aspects of personality, a lot of classes which cannot represent themselves. They cannot exercise their right to sue. For example, even laborers at one point in time, and let's say juveniles, children have rights, but children can't go and sue themselves. So they need some advocates representing on their behalf. Infants, even those who are unborn have rights. So why can't animals have rights? There are a lot of groups, there are a lot of advocates like you and me who are working for them. So we can make a representation in the court, we can represent their interest, just like we do for unborns or for children or for any other challenged class. So pretty much this is why their inclusion in victimology becomes much more important to pave their way to fair treatment, access to justice, and thereafter restitution. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you for that. And again, back to you guys. How do you convince restaurants to provide vegan menus?
First, people really think it's very difficult things, so we convince them that it's not difficult things. We can start very easy way, and then once people understand, the cook understand, it's not that difficult, and also we can provide a lot of vegan samples, vegan products, because we are doing the vegan certification. We really have a lot of list of vegan ingredients. Then they are very happy to try them. Then it's become easier to make vegan options. Thank you.
I would like to comment on that a little bit. One thing, I started working at Veggie Project last year. And when I entered Veggie Project, I said, okay, we should make a recipe book for the food caterers and the restaurants and the universities. And she said, I don't think that's a good idea. And recently, I've really understood why that is. People who are making food at restaurants and cafeterias, they are very proud of their work. They have their own ways of cooking. So if you come and say, you are going to make a quinoa pudding using this recipe, and they say, oh, no, I don't want to make that. So a good approach to make restaurants and food caterers enthusiastic about making vegan ingredients is to pose it like a challenge. You have these ingredients. How can you make something amazing out of this? So it's more like giving them the tools and let them play sandbox with that, and then helping them with feedback. For example, you might arrange a tasting where vegans may say, oh, this tastes better than this kind of thing. But the start point should be from the people who are thinking of the recipes themselves. So I think that's also an important point.
Okay, perfect. So basically more freedom-based approaches.
Yes.
That's perfect. So the last question is for, again, to you. And this is actually another very amazing figure in animal law who passed away this year, Stephen Weiss.
Yeah.
And he was the pioneer of this theory called habeas corpus, which is basically, in Latin terms, produce the body, or giving the right to the animal to be removed from prison camp situations such as zoos. How do you see the possibility of using habeas corpus in India, for example, or just animals in captivity, if that's even possible?
Wonderful question. Okay, my regards to Stephen Weiss. I've made a book review of his book, Rattling the Cage, which is a very interesting book. I would suggest everybody to go through it, not just lawyers, anybody can go through that book. It's amazing literature. Also, this is very ironic. The latest judgment that came in 2023 at one of the paragraphs, which, if I recollect, it's paragraph 34, that came from Supreme Court of India, the 5-judge bench. It made a reference of habeas corpus in a very unpresentable way, or rather, I should use the word unmannerly way. It really kind of mocked the whole animal rights approach, mentioning that there is no such precedent of animal rights or extension of animal personhood, and can we imagine habeas corpus being extended to a bull? That was some kind of a question, and that was very disheartening that the Apex Court of India reversing the 2014 judgment and writing it in such cruel words. However, when we talk from victim justice perspectives and make a case for restitution, we don't leave the victim behind. That is where we talk about, when you kill, you injure an animal or maim an animal, you do the proceeding against the abuser, the perpetrator, but you make a case for the animal also. And there's one very interesting literature written by Brittany Hill, who's a researcher at, I think, Cambridge, and she made an argument, why restorative justice can be a win-win thing, especially for animal cruelty matters, because the person who's a perpetrator has never seen the pain and suffering of the animal. So when he engages in a community service sentence or some kind of a constructive experience with the animal, we don't just treat the animal, we change an abuser who could have been a potential abuser in the future also to another animal or a human being, potentially. We change the whole perspective. So that is how we make a case for restorative justice. Now, specific to habeas corpus, I think we definitely have a good case for habeas corpus, especially for animals in captivity. And there have been some developments in this regard. I'm forgetting the name of the cases, but not in India, but in other jurisdictions, there have been some successful habeas corpus cases, though a very, again, a depressing judgment came from US recently about that elephant. But yes, I think we are going in that direction. So if you sit with the people who are writing about animal rights and talk to them, they're really hopeful about, getting a habeas corpus case very soon. Yeah. So, yeah,
Perfect.
pretty much. Thank
Thank you so much. I'm sure there are many more questions, but of course, people have to eat lunch, which is served at the poolside, because we don't want anybody to get hostile. But thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you for such being amazing speakers. For any questions, please directly reach out to them. And thank you so much for such a wonderful session. Have a wonderful rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.